I just found out my wife's affair with our lawyer involved a secret $400, $0 property transfer, and now she's suing me for half of everything after she secretly maxed out our joint accounts during our divorce. I feel completely betrayed and lost. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating on him, especially not in the most brutal, gut-wrenching way possible. But here I am, sitting in my living room, staring at my phone like it's a loaded gun, realizing the woman I trusted with everything, my life, my money, my future, has been lying to me for months. The moment I found out about the affair with our lawyer, everything changed. It was like a bomb went off inside my head and I couldn't breathe for a while. I still remember the day I discovered it like it was yesterday, how everything shifted in an instant. Her name's Jennifer. She's always been a bit bitchy, always. Had that sharp tongue, but I thought that was just her personality. She's the kind of woman who dresses perfectly, always knows how to turn on the charm when she wants something, and can be downright ruthless when she sets her mind to it. We'd been married for 10 years, and I genuinely thought we had a decent life. We had a good house, 2 kids, a business that I started from scratch, and enough savings to keep us comfortable. But somewhere along the line, I started noticing little things that didn't add up: her late nights, her phone always hidden, her sudden interest in personal growth and self-care. I brushed it off at first. I mean, who wants to believe their wife is cheating? Not me. Then came the signs that made my stomach drop. First, her phone started acting weird more than usual. She'd get calls at odd hours, quickly hide her screen when I walked into the room, and delete messages. I caught her deleting texts once, and when I asked what she was doing, she snapped at me saying I was paranoid. That's when I started snooping. Not my proudest moment, I know, but I was desperate. For the truth, I ran a search through her phone, and that's when I hit the jackpot: text messages, pictures, even a few explicit photos with someone named Mark. That's when I realized she'd been cheating on me for months. The worst part, she lied to my face when I confronted her. She told me it was a mistake, that she was just lonely, that she loved me but needed excitement. She said she was sorry, that it was a one-time thing, that she'd stop. But I knew better. I saw the texts, the intimacy, hell, the way she talked about him like he was the only man in the world. I felt numb, like my entire life was a lie. The woman I married, the mother of my children, was out there screwing around with our lawyer, a guy I trusted implicitly, George. And it wasn't just the emotional betrayal that cut deep. It was the money. Turns out, during this whole mess, she'd been secretly transferring assets, maxing out our joint accounts, and even involved George in a secret property transfer, worth over $400, $0. I found out about it when I was digging through our bank statements, trying to piece together what was going on. The transfers were hidden in a way that only a lawyer could pull off, and I felt sick realizing how much she'd lied and manipulated the situation. She was planning to take everything, including my business, my savings, the house, all of it. I was blindsided and furious. The day I discovered the affair, I felt a mixture of shock, rage, and heartbreak. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. How could she do this to me, to our family? I never thought she'd be capable of such betrayal, but there it was, plain as day. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies, and I didn't know if I could ever come up for air. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head: her lies, her cheating, her stealing, and I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to fight back, not just for my money but for my dignity. But I also didn't know what that looked like yet. All I knew was that my world was falling apart and I was utterly lost. The next few days were a blur. I stayed up late, going through every bank statement, every text, every email I could find. The more I dug, the more I realized just how deep the betrayal went. Jennifer had been planning this for a while, maxing out our joint accounts, funneling money into secret accounts she'd set up, and even involving George in a shady property transfer worth over $400, $0. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. She'd always acted like she was the perfect wife, bitchy, sure, but loyal. Turns out she'd been lying right to my face. I remember sitting there, staring at the bank statements, feeling my blood boil. The house, our savings, the business I built from nothing, all of it could be gone if she got her way. And she had the nerve to lie about it, claiming she was just trying to protect her interests. Yeah, right. Protect her interests while secretly screwing me over. I felt like I was in some twisted nightmare and I couldn't wake up. Then came the confrontation. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I called her at work, told her I knew everything. She answered with that fake, sweet voice she always used when she was trying to manipulate someone. "Hey babe, what's up?" she said. I didn't hold back. I told her I knew about the affair, about the money transfers, about everything. Her reaction was classic Jennifer: denial, blame shifting, and outright lies. She said she was under a lot of stress, that Mark was just a distraction, that I was overreacting. She even had the nerve to say I was paranoid, that I'd always been suspicious of her, and that it was all in my head. I didn't buy it. Not for a second. I told her she was full of shit, that I had proof, screenshots, bank statements, even recordings of her calls. She hung up on me, angry, screaming that I was ruining everything, that I was crazy. But I knew I couldn't let her keep spinning her lies. I needed a plan, a way to get her to face what she'd done and to protect what was mine. That's when I started thinking about the legal side of things. I knew she'd been sneaking around, maxing out accounts, hiding assets. I wasn't about to lose everything she was trying to steal from me. I reached out to a lawyer I'd known for years, George's partner, actually. I wanted to know my options. Turns out I had a lot more leverage than I thought. Because of the secret property transfer, her involvement with George, and the fact that she'd been draining our joint accounts, I could potentially challenge the whole thing. But what struck me hardest was realizing how much I'd trusted her, even after she started acting distant, even after I sensed something was wrong. I kept telling myself she'd never cheat, never lie that blatantly. Now I see how naive that was. My wife Jennifer turned out to be a master manipulator, and I was just another pawn in her game. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. I felt this sharp, cold pain in my chest, like I'd been punched in the stomach. All those years, all that effort, and she'd been secretly screwing around, stealing from me, planning to take everything we built. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with it. I started gathering evidence, screenshots, bank records, anything I could find. I even hired a private investigator to dig into her finances and her whereabouts. I wanted to see if there was more she was hiding. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that I was dealing with someone who had no regard for honesty or loyalty. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I was going to fight back, no matter what it took. That night I sat in my office, staring at all the evidence I'd collected. My hands were trembling, but my mind was sharp. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, and I knew I had to protect what was mine. I made a decision. I was going to confront her again, but this time with everything laid bare. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. I had proof, and I was ready to fight for my life, my money, and my dignity. The betrayal had cut deep, but I was determined not to let her win, not without a fight. The confrontation I planned was brutal in its simplicity. I told Jennifer I knew everything: the affair, the secret property transfer, her draining our accounts, and her face twisted into this sneering, bitchy expression like I was the one overreacting. She did her best to play innocent, to act like I was crazy, but I had the receipts, the proof. I laid everything out on the table, from the texts between her and Mark to the bank statements showing her maxing out our joint accounts and funneling money into that shady property deal. Her reaction was nothing short of infuriating. She started lying even more, claiming she was just trying to protect us, that her affair with Mark was nothing serious, and that I was just jealous. She said she only did the transfers because she was afraid I'd find out, and that she was trying to secure our future. Yeah, right. Securing her future by secretly stealing half of what we had. That's a new level of bitchiness I didn't expect. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never cheat, that I was imagining things. I told her she was full of shit, that I had the evidence, and that I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. What really got to me was her attitude, so dismissive, so arrogant. She looked at me like I was a fool, like I was supposed to just accept her lies. I felt my blood boil. How could she sit there and lie so effortlessly? How could she think she could get away with this? I wonder if she even believed her own bullshit. I told her I was done being a fool, that I was calling a lawyer, that I was going to protect what was mine. She snapped back with that typical bitchy smirk and told me I was overreacting, that I was making a mountain out of a molehill, that I was just paranoid, and that I didn't understand how the world worked. The emotional roller coaster was exhausting. I went from shock to anger, then to a strange numbness. I felt betrayed in a way I'd never experienced before. The woman I loved, the woman I built a life with, was a complete stranger in her lies. It's like I didn't even recognize her anymore. I kept thinking about all those years, our wedding, the kids, the plans for the future, and how she'd just thrown it all away for some secret affair and greed. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting, only to be stabbed in the back like this. After the confrontation, I knew I had to act. I couldn't just sit around and let her keep twisting the knife. I contacted my lawyer again, the one who was involved with George, and laid out everything I'd uncovered. We discussed my options. Turns out, I had a solid case to challenge the property transfer and the withdrawals she made. I could file for an injunction to freeze her assets, and I could demand an accounting of all the money she'd taken. The legal side was complicated, but I knew I had enough to fight her for what was rightfully mine. The hardest part was realizing that I'd been played so well. Jennifer had this bitchy, manipulative side that I'd never seen before. She was good at pretending to be the loving wife, but behind that mask was someone willing to cheat, steal, and lie to get what she wanted. The betrayal cut so deep I felt like I was bleeding internally. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see her true nature sooner. But there was no point dwelling on that now. I had to focus on what came next. That night, I sat alone in my office, staring at the evidence eyed. Collected, my hands trembled but my mind was clear. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. I had to protect myself and my children. I was angry, yes, but also determined. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about standing up for myself against someone who'd betrayed everything we built. I realized I'd have to fight tooth and nail, but I was ready. I'd be damned if I let her walk away with everything, including my dignity. That realization made me feel a strange sense of resolve. I wasn't going down without a fight. The legal process moved faster than I expected once I handed everything over to my lawyer. She was aggressive, smart, and relentless, exactly what I needed. We filed for an injunction to freeze her accounts and prevent her from transferring or hiding any more assets. The moment we did that, I could see how panicked she was getting. Jennifer started making frantic calls, trying to spin her lies, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew her game now. Meanwhile, I was preparing for the inevitable court battle. I hired a private investigator to dig into her financial history further. Turns out, she'd been secretly maxing out our joint accounts over the last 6 months, even before I discovered the affair. She drained thousands of dollars on designer clothes, fancy dinners, and trips with Mark. All the while, she kept telling me she was saving for the kids' college. But I knew better. She was spending it on her own pleasures, and she was doing it behind my back. The biggest shock came when I found out about the property transfer. She involved George, our lawyer, in a move to secretly transfer a $400, $0 property into her name. It was all hidden in legal jargon, but I had a copy of the documents. That's when I knew she was serious about taking everything. I confronted her again, demanding she come clean. That's when she finally broke down, admitting she'd been planning this for months, that she wanted security, and that I'd never understand her needs. That was the moment I realized she'd been lying to my face all along about everything. The court date was set for a few weeks later. I was nervous but also relieved. I knew I had the evidence and I knew I had the moral high ground. Jennifer, of course, was trying to manipulate the situation, claiming she was the victim, that I was trying to ruin her, that she deserved half of everything because she was married to me. She even had the nerve to call me selfish and accuse me of being controlling. I just sat there listening, knowing that her words were lies, just more tactics to spin her story and manipulate the judge. The day of the hearing arrived, and I felt a mixture of anger and resolve. Jennifer showed up looking bitchy as ever, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup done to look innocent. She tried to lay on the tears, claiming she was just trying to protect her future, but I wasn't buying it. The evidence spoke for itself. I presented the bank statements, the transfer documents, the texts with Mark, and the reports from the pie. The judge listened carefully, and I could see her eyes narrowing when Jennifer tried to deny everything. Finally, the judge made her ruling. She ordered Jennifer to return the stolen money, freeze the property transfer, and pay back what she drained from our accounts. She also awarded me full custody of the kids, citing Jennifer's dishonesty and financial misconduct as reasons. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. I'd won the legal battle, but the emotional damage was still raw. I realized I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible, by the woman I loved and trusted most. In the aftermath, Jennifer was furious. She tried to spin her lies to the kids, but I made sure they knew the truth, without going into too much detail. I wanted them to understand that their mother had made some terrible choices, but that I'd always be there for them. I also started the process of separating our lives, changing locks and securing what was left. I knew this was only the beginning of a long, painful road, but I was determined to rebuild. I'd lost trust in her, but I hadn't lost hope for myself. The betrayal had shattered everything, but I was learning how to pick up the pieces, slowly, painfully, but surely. Looking back, I realize how naive I'd been. I thought I knew her, but I didn't. I thought our life was perfect, but it was built on lies. The one thing I do know now, I'll never trust blindly again, and I'll always keep a close eye on the money, because that's where the truth often hides. After the court case, things didn't magically get better, but at least there was some clarity. Jennifer was furious, of course. She called me all kinds of names, accused me of trying to ruin her, and insisted she was the real victim. But I knew better. I had the proof, the court's ruling, and the truth on my side. Still, her words cut deep, especially knowing she'd lied to me for so long, played me like a fool. The aftermath was a whirlwind of legal battles, emotional fallout, and trying to pick up the pieces. I had to change the locks on the house, cancel her credit cards, and tighten security around the kids. I didn't want her sneaking around or trying to manipulate the situation anymore. She kept trying to contact me, but I blocked her on everything: phone, email, social media. I needed space to breathe and to heal. The betrayal had shaken me to my core, but I refused to let her destroy me completely. I also had to tell the kids what was happening, but I kept it simple. I explained that Mommy and Daddy were having some problems and that I was doing everything I could to protect them. I didn't want to badmouth her in front of the kids. They deserved to love their mother, even if she'd made some terrible choices. Still, I made it clear that I wouldn't tolerate her lies or manipulation. I wanted them to see that I was there for them, that I was fighting for our family's safety and future. In the weeks that followed, I started focusing on myself. I threw myself into work, trying to rebuild the business I'd poured so much into. I also sought therapy, something I'd never considered before but realized I needed. Talking to someone helped me process the betrayal, the anger, and the grief. I couldn't just pretend everything was okay. I had to confront my feelings head-on. It was a painful process, but I knew it was necessary if I wanted to move on. The hardest part was the loneliness. I'd been with Jennifer for so long that the house felt empty, even when the kids were around. I'd catch myself thinking about what could have been, our plans, our future, the life I thought we had. But I knew dwelling on it wouldn't help. I had to accept that she'd made her choices, and I had to focus on rebuilding my life one step at a time. Despite everything, I learned some valuable lessons. Trust is fragile, and people can hide who they really are for a long time. Never ignore the signs, no matter how small. Money, in particular, is a huge indicator. Hidden accounts, transfers, secret deals. Always stay vigilant. And most importantly, don't be afraid to fight for yourself. If someone betrays you like Jennifer did, don't just accept it. Get proof, stand your ground, and protect what's yours. Now I'm still healing, still trying to trust again, but I'm stronger than I was before. This whole nightmare taught me that resilience matters, that even when everything seems lost, you can find a way to rebuild. I don't regret fighting for my rights or standing up to her lies. If anything, it's made me realize my own strength. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't let betrayal define me. I'll keep moving forward, wiser, tougher, and more cautious than ever before. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me, probably forever. I used to think I was the kind of guy who trusted too easily, who believed in the good in people. That trust was shattered in the worst way possible with Jennifer. But what I've learned is that being cautious doesn't mean you're mistrusting everyone. It just means you're protecting yourself. I'll never be naive about money or relationships again. The betrayal hit hard, but it also made me see what really matters. My kids, my own well-being, my dignity. That's where my focus is now. The house is quieter, the nights are less restless, and I finally feel like I'm regaining control of my life. I've come to accept that some people are just capable of betrayal, and that sometimes the best you can do is pick yourself up, learn from it, and move forward stronger. I've also come to see that the real fight wasn't just about the money or legal battles. It was about reclaiming my sense of self, rebuilding trust in my instincts, and understanding that I can survive even the deepest wounds. Yes, Jennifer's actions hurt, but I refuse to let her define me. I've learned how to set boundaries, how to stand firm when someone tries to manipulate or lie, and how to keep my eyes open no matter what. Now, I focus on rebuilding my life, slowly but surely. I'm investing in myself, therapy, new hobbies, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected during the chaos. The pain still lingers, but it's less sharp than it was at first. I've realized that healing isn't about forgetting or pretending it didn't happen. It's about accepting what's happened and choosing to move on despite the scars. I want anyone reading this who's going through something similar to know this. Don't ignore the signs. Money, communication, behavior, it all tells you a story. Trust your gut, and if something feels off, dig deeper. Protect yourself and your assets, because betrayal often comes with a price, sometimes a very high one. And when it happens, stand your ground. Fight for what's rightfully yours, and don't let anyone diminish your worth. Most importantly, don't give up. No matter how dark it gets, there is always a way out. Sometimes the only way forward is through the pain, but I promise you can come out stronger on the other side. I am living proof of that. I still have scars, but I also have hope. Hope that I'll find happiness again, that I'll rebuild trust in myself, and that one day I'll look back at this chapter and see it as the moment I refused to be broken. This experience has taught me more about resilience and self-respect than anything else in my life. And if sharing my story helps even one person see the signs or stand up for themselves, then it's worth it. Because no matter how betrayed you feel, you're not alone, and you have the strength to start over.